never thought I would become the kind of man who counts hours. But that is exactly what I was doing on the night everything ended, sitting in my truck outside a dental office parking lot in Denver, watching the clock on my dashboard climb past 9, while my wife's silver Honda sat 3 spaces down, dark and empty, in a lot that had officially closed at 6. My name is Ryan Coleman. I was 39 years old that year, and I had been married to Megan for 15 years, together for 17 if you counted the 2 years we dated before the wedding. We had built a life the way most people do, brick by brick, without ever stepping back to ask if the house was still standing on solid ground. I ran a small construction and remodeling company I had started with a single truck and a stack of business cards I printed at a gas station kiosk. Megan worked as a regional sales director for a medical supply company, the kind of job that came with a company car, an expense account, and a travel schedule that had crept over the last 2 years from once a month to nearly every week. We had 2 kids, Ella, who was 12, and Caleb, who was 9. We had a house in Littleton with a crooked basketball hoop I kept meaning to fix, a golden retriever named Biscuit who slept on Caleb's bed every night, and a marriage I would have described, if you had asked me that morning, as ordinary, not electric, not perfect, but solid. The first crack, the one fact that should have told me everything, came on a Tuesday in early March. Megan had said she was heading to a supplier conference in Scottsdale. 3 nights. 2 days later, folding laundry, I found a hotel receipt balled up in the pocket of a blazer she'd worn the week before the trip. Not Scottsdale, a Marriott in Colorado Springs, 90 minutes from our house, 1 room, 2 guests on the incidental charge. I brought it to her that evening. She barely looked up from the dishwasher. It was Danielle, her old roommate, going through a divorce, needing a low-key girls' weekend she hadn't wanted to make a big deal of because she knew I'd worry about the cost. I believed her mostly, or wanted to, but something had shifted quietly in me. Over the following months, I began cataloging things I'd once have waved away. Her phone, once face up on the counter, started living face down, then in her purse, then behind a passcode explained as new corporate policy. Her trips arrived as clipped, vague announcements instead of the itineraries she used to mention over coffee. A new boutique gym membership across town, alone, at 5 in the morning. New lingerie, tags still on, that I never saw her wear. Calls taken in the garage with the door shut. A light, delighted laugh I hadn't heard aimed at me in years. An early passport renewal she couldn't explain. A new perfume, warmer than the one she'd worn for a decade. Supposedly a coworker's birthday gift. Each thing alone was nothing. Together they filled a drawer in my head I opened at 2 in the morning while she slept soundly beside me. The fact I couldn't explain away came on a Thursday in late September. Megan said she had a late client dinner, home by 9:30. That night Caleb spiked a fever. I called her voicemail. Texted, nothing for 20 minutes, unlike her. By 9 his fever hit 102 and I drove him to urgent care myself, passing on the fastest route, the office complex on Colorado Boulevard, where her silver Honda sat parked outside a building with no restaurants, no clients, just a dental practice, an accounting firm, and a second-floor suite leased by Trevor Vance, a college classmate she'd reconnected with 8 months earlier. I said nothing that night. The next morning I pulled our family phone plan's detailed billing history, cell tower data showing her phone pinging that exact building from 6:40 to nearly 11. The precise window of a restaurant reservation that, one phone call confirmed, never existed. I found the shell company lease behind Trevor's suite. A maiden name credit card I'd never known about. Hotel confirmations under a rewards account she'd forgotten was still synced to a shared family cloud album, including one photograph, timestamped 10/14 that same September night, of Megan laughing with her hand on Trevor's forearm. I didn't explode. I gathered everything into a folder and waited. 3 weeks later, on a Sunday evening after the kids were asleep, Megan sat me down at that same kitchen table and told me, in a rehearsed, trembling voice, that she'd fallen in love with someone else, that she owed me the truth after 15 years. I let her finish. Then I told her I already knew. The receipt, the passcode, the gym, the perfume, the fever night, the cell tower pings, the fake reservation, the shell lease, the hidden card, the photograph. I ended the marriage that same night. No shouting, no thrown plates. I told her I'd sleep in the guest room, that in the morning I'd call a lawyer, and that whatever had happened between us would never become a weapon used in front of Ella and Caleb. She tried, in the following week, to suggest counseling, to say this didn't have to be the end. I told her that if she'd come to me honestly a year earlier, we might have had a chance. Instead, she'd built an entire second life, complete with false documents, and only confessed once she believed she'd already found something better without me. That wasn't a marriage in crisis. That was one already over. The custody process moved faster than I expected. Discovery revealed Megan had quietly been apartment hunting near Trevor's office weeks before her confession. Trevor, it turned out, was still legally married to a woman in another state, a fact that surfaced only because his wife had hired her own investigator, whose findings crossed paths with my lawyers. I wasn't the only spouse who'd spent months quietly building proof of a parallel life. The divorce finalized 11 months later. Megan moved across town, not with Trevor. His marriage collapsed publicly around the same time, and whatever she thought she was building with him seemed to lose its shape once the secrecy that had held it together disappeared. I don't feel triumphant now, 2 years on. Mostly I feel a clear-eyed sadness. For the version of Megan I married at 24, for the 15 years I believed were solid ground. Ella is 14, splitting time between 2 houses, still keeping an old beach photo of all 4 of us on her nightstand. Caleb is 11, and Biscuit still sleeps in his room, which mattered more to a 9-year-old than any court document ever could. I think often about that drawer of red flags I carried for 7 months, and how easy it would have been to keep explaining each one away individually. What I learned is that trust isn't a single decision made once at an altar. It's 1,000 small decisions, and once you stop being able to explain them away, you can't force yourself back into not noticing. Megan and I are civil now, mostly for the kids, brief texts about pickups, polite distance at soccer games. I don't hate her. What I feel is the quiet grief of a man who spent 15 years building something he believed was solid, only to learn, one receipt and one photograph at a time, that someone else had already begun building something entirely different, in a life running parallel to ours, waiting only until she felt ready or cornered enough to finally tell me a truth I'd already proven to myself, alone, in the quiet hours after everyone else in the house had gone to sleep.